What's going on? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Let's Talk About Stuff. I'm Bankrupt, here once again by Jake and Nick.
Going on, y'all?
You can't see me, but I'm waving.
And maybe Jimmy will join, maybe not. He's, I think, drinking and eating sushi. This weekend, we have a couple matchups coming up your way. Some things might be, I think, a throwback. I know both me and Jake were on camera. That was Villainous versus Trunks Jito. And Jake, once again, has draft box cards. Dash pack cards. Nick, you were on camera, playing Clash Coup, right?
Sure was, yeah.
And you were playing against Trevor, who was playing Green King Piccolo.
Mm-hmm.
And then round 3, no, that was me, Jake. Round
one,
yes, was Jimmy versus Chase. And Jimmy was playing Blue Gohan or 3 Han, and Chase was playing is it set 2 Golden Frieza?
Yeah. The one where you're popping Frieza's armies to restand energy.
And he was playing a fun tech in that one, so look forward to that one. And and we'll have a deck profile on the King Piccolo, and we'll have a deck profile on Broly BR finally. We will also have finally the match between Broly versus Stormfist Krillin. That didn't go up on Saturday. It'll go up on Monday instead. And the Broly profile will also go up on, not Sunday, Monday. And the Broly profile will go on Monday as well. So throughout the week, we finally got more than just 2 cards per day, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
We got to see the rest of the Boo engine, which a lot of people had talks about that and it was actually confirmed. Did we talk about Boo last week? I don't remember actually now. We might have talked about Boo.
Well, we spent a lot of time talking about like how the Z stack works and all of that.
So that was finally confirmed, or at least it was sussed out that the stack itself is counted as one entity. So that means the card on top will be affected by the cards in the stack.
No matter what.
So that helps that chain out a lot. Now, granted, if it's negged, I don't know if like blanking its skills will work because it's not the card, it's the card underneath it that's giving it the protection.
Well, once it's the card, so like if you're talking about like Final Flash or something that. So if you were to Final Flash it, the card on top is the only card that Final Flash is considering.
Yes.
And even if another card is giving that card's skills are negated. So even if it were to gain skills later in the turn, they would be negated.
So that works with the barrier one, but does that work with the Majin Buu Heart of Good, which is
can only be KO'd.
It can't be KO'd once per turn, so it's protected because of a permanent, not because of a skill.
Well, a permanent is a skill.
That's fair. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, anything in the text box is a skill. So,
but they read 2 different ways. They read 2 different ways, though. The evil one says the card gains barrier, and the good one says the card can't be KO'd by skills. So it's the card itself isn't gaining the skill of not being KO'd once per turn. It's the bottom card giving the permanent skill. So I feel like that's something that you wouldn't be able to hit with Final Flash.
I can see how it's confusing, but the way that it is apparently been confirmed to work is that for all intents and purposes, the card on top is the only card. So everything underneath effectively doesn't exist. If that were an effect that happened to the player, like Topo, I could see it working that way. But since it still is affecting the card, I think Final Flash would still turn it off.
We're finally getting blue reviews, which I'm super excited for blue this set. The first up was Android 18 with some Krillin support, which is just phenomenal. Old school set 8 Android 18 cards is great for this deck. Help search it out. The Unis is actually not bad. I liked it a lot, but what really makes this deck good is the Z leader and the Z stack functionality of that Z leader. So you Z Awaken, and then you get to put the Krillin and the Android 17 card underneath it. And then for 3 energy, you're playing with those cards, which turns around and just restand to energy. I think at the end of the turn, those cards do. But those cards are so good. So good.
Yeah, as it shows right now, I feel like the Android 18 is the best use of the Z stack.
Yeah.
Just because it's pretty self-contained, you get more effects for playing the cards. They're not they're really good on their own, but I feel like as far as what everything has been shown right now, that's my favorite. Just because it's they do so many good things, and that's really easy to do.
Yeah, and like if you were to play those cards naturally, um, it's 5 energy, 3 Z energy, just to play either one of them out. But yeah, like I said, because of the Z stack, you just pay 1 and then 3 Z energy for the Z Awaken, which you do need to be at 3 life for. But then you pay 3 more energy and you play one of those 2 cards. And those cards I think had really good on play autos. Krillin, when this card's played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, place it at the bottom of its owner's deck, switch up to one of your leaders to active mode, switch up to one of your mono blue energy to active mode, and this card gains barrier until end of your end of your opponent's next turn, and it's a deflect dual attack blocker, which is just really good. And then at the end of your turn, you place one Android 18 card from your drop under your leader, so it kind of helps keep the leader replenished with the cards by replacing itself. And the 17's crit double strike that gets a power boost, but has all these switch to active mode cards. And the Z Awakened leader, it is a once per turn on its attack, but that's understandable.
Yeah, I think so far out of most of the reveals, the Android 18 stuff looks the most interesting to me, and unfortunately, I think it's probably going to be a deck that a lot of people gravitate towards. So there's probably going to be a lot of mirror matches in my future.
The what I'm liking about the Android 18 card, like I said, the old set 8 stuff will work for it really great. You play the 1-drop Android 18s to just kind of search your top 5 cards for another Android card. Now, granted, there is a card in this deck that does similar effect, but it also pulls a Krillin or Android card. But you could tech in a little bit more to kind of search for other things as well, which is pretty nice.
I think you can honestly get away with running it in like a blue-green package as well, just because there's so many blue-green androids that to save your leaders a blue android negate the energy exhaust. There's the Android 21 from this set. There's also the Android 18 from the current or the previous set. That's another really good piece just for blue-green in general. So I feel like a blue-green package would be really nice in the deck.
Which the set 8 will allow you to also switch those energies around for yourself as well.
Yeah.
We got some cool promos that unfortunately none of us are going to get because I'm not going to Las Vegas. But hey, if you happen to go to Las Vegas as either participating or spectating, you get some cool 7 cost extra cards that make you and your opponent complement each other. Now, granted, if your opponent doesn't want to do it, they get away with it because you complete as much as possible.
So if there's nothing you can compliment about your opponent, you just complete as much as possible, which is nothing.
Well, that's the way I take it.
I love that. We were talking about these cards at the shop tonight, and I was like, yeah, these are really cool. When I saw these revealed, I was like, oh, I'd like to own one of these, but I don't know how you get them.
So,
and then when I heard how you get them, I was just like, oh, well, here's another like cool thing I'll never have.
Yeah, there's roughly, I think both events are 250 people. And I think the spectators is 1,000 people, I think. So roughly about 1,500 of these cards are going to be able to pass out, and I think you get one of each if you go to the event. So that being said, it's going to be altogether roughly 4,500. That will be on secondary market to some degree. But yeah, no, I would like to have at least one of these cards. Now, they are 3 different promos for people who like to collect stuff. I'm sorry, that's going to suck for you. Yeah. And I do know, I saw like a lot of people were talking about having to like fly out of the States for a unique promo card. And I do understand that to a degree, for the collector aspect of it. But there are promos I've seen that happen at other tournaments that we don't get access to, but those are promos or those are alt art of other cards in existence. So I do understand
Yeah.
that, but you're not going to play this card. It's just for collector's aspect.
Yeah, I think if I got this, it would be in a frame somewhere or like made into a nice shadow box or something, you know.
I'm just happy they put Shallot on a card.
Yeah, no, it's the first card Shallot's ever on, and it just so happens to be a promo card that has nothing really to do with the game because no one's ever going to play this card. And if someone plays this card and they get that off.
So the only thing that I can see is there's no reason for them not to print an archetype with Shallot.
Yeah, this just shows that, and yes, it is a Dragon Ball Legends card for the Dragon Ball Super card game, but that to me does say maybe we are going to get Shallot in the future. We're doing Prison Planet arc next set, so
yeah, and it's the fact that that's the first appearance of Shallot in Dragon Ball Super card game means that that card has an additional layer of collectability, which means that one will likely be the most expensive out of the promos.
Yes.
But it looks like they're selling them, they're distributing them as a pack of 3, so you get one of each, so.
Yeah, I guess I just meant more like secondary market.
Yeah, whoever breaks them up, you suck.
A lot of androids coming out.
Yeah. And yeah, this is the rest of Android's Android 18 stuff, which I think these look pretty good. The 3-drop Android, when this card is played, choose one of your opponents, choose one of your Android 18 cards of energy cost 5 or less, and switch to active mode, so it just allows you to kind of continuously attack with your cards, which is pretty nice. And speaking of Android cards, my favorite deck archetype finally got its leader to come back, which is 21, and I'm super excited for this one. The difference between this one is that you can't activate extra cards during your turn, which is fine. The biggest extra card you would activate beforehand was Senzu Bean, and now you can't even do it during your turn. It's only during your opponent's turn, so that works out great. I think this is also referring to a lot of like the older school 21 cards, which like you activate main and draw one card for like 1 energy, and then you use that card to rearrange your energy later down the road.
Notably, this deck can't play the removal spell. Listen to me. The extra card Predation, which allows you to KO. I think it's a 2 or less Enduring Barrier, and then draw 2 cards. I think that's the biggest miss.
Well, that permanent goes away on the Awaken side, so you just can't do it unawakened to play extras.
The extra cards part go away. You still can't play cards with skills though. So like you can't do the activate main on Piccolo and then get Pan. Like you can pay 3 for Piccolo, but then you still can't play Pan afterwards. But yes, the extra card part does go away once you've awakened. This leader is great when it comes to, I think, searching. It's activate main. You add 1 card from your life to your hand, then you search top 5 cards of your deck. If you have an Android 21 Z battle card in play at the end of your turn, it switches one of your blue energy to active mode, which kind of goes in theme with the old school 21, which had the ability to restain energy every turn, which is fun. I enjoy doing that.
Yeah. Get a mail-in rebate.
And it does say, was it at the end of your turn? Yeah. So silver bullets are gonna be a problem against this deck, but this deck has ways of getting around that. So once you've awakened, oh yeah, and just a point real quick, in order to awaken in this deck, you have to have 4 life. Like there's no alternative to that. And I can't remember if that's how 18 was as well, actually. Let me double check that real quick.
I'm pretty sure that had an alternate awaken.
Yeah, 18. Yeah, 18 did have alternate awaken. So 21, you had to have 4 life to awaken, which I guess is fair because you take your own life. So if your opponent wants to kind of like slow you down a little bit, I think that's good on them because the permanent of this card is when paying the energy cost for your 21 cards, you can use your 21 Z battle cards and your opponent's battle cards and unisons as energy. Now, if they're not a blue card, that's considered a colorless energy then for you because obviously it's not blue. But this deck is a blue-green deck from what we've gathered so far. And if you're playing as blue or green cards, that just helps you out. And the counter play, I think it was. Yeah, the counter play on this card is really good. If it's your turn, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, place it at the bottom of the owner's deck. At the end of your turn, switch this card to active mode. No, wait, I thought was there not a negate one? I thought it was a negate one for some reason.
Yeah, that's the neck.
Okay, the counterattack is play this card, and the auto when this card is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards ignoring barrier, place it at the owner's drop, and your opponent can't attack with non-leaders for the turn unless they place one card each from their hand and Z energy to the owner's drop areas each time. That and alone is really, really good. Because it is a cost 2 attack, and not only does it mean cards in the hand, it means they have to have cards in the Z energy.
Counter.
Full power counter.
Yeah. It's like Jake starting to freeze. Oh, hang on. I just had, like, my whole internet just crashed on me.
Oh, man. Maybe that's why Facebook wasn't loading.
Maybe it's because Jimmy was joining the chat.
Are you still recording?
Yeah, I'm still recording. That was just really weird.
That's wild.
All right, yeah, it's working now. Everything's working now. All right. What's up, Jimmy?
What's up, big head?
We're just talking Android 21 reveals.
Yeah, children.
Well, it depends on which one. You know, if it's
Okay.
evil 21, then yes, it's a child. But we're talking about the gate right now for it.
This is too complicated for me.
Just the gate's really good, and I agree with Nick. Playing this card in a gamma would be really good as well, because you're always resending 3 energy practically every turn.
I think this is one of the most potent floodgate effects we've seen in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't had anything interact with your opponent's Z energy before. And just having that, especially with decks that can't really generate Z energy consistently, is just going to put a huge floodgate on a lot of stuff, especially older decks.
Yeah.
That you don't see too much. There's been support coming around for generating Z energy and stuff, but even still, like it's just going to put a hard you can't attack this turn. It's just another baby hatch you can run 4 copies of.
Yeah, how fun.
I mean, there's a ton of archetypes that require on having, certain numbers of cards in your Z energy as well. So, like, putting a halt on, like, your opponent's entire, game plan is kind of huge.
Yeah.
It's already bad enough, like, hitting the hand or hitting the field, which we see in a lot of blue stuff. But, like, hitting 2 things simultaneously is just, disgusting.
And can you imagine the mirror match for this deck's going to be like?
Drago.
That's where you just don't.
And we didn't talk about it real quick, but the leader on Awaken can restand. It's draw 1 to choose up to 3 of your opponent's battle cards and or unisons, ignoring barrier, and switch them to active mode. So if you happen to be playing one of like blue or green cards, you can just go, I want you to restand those cards so I can just turn around and tap them back down for you.
I don't know if this has
Or
been
rest 'em.
said, but said so far, but there are a lot of cards, not super meta relevant cards, but cards that are like, while this card is in rest mode, put your opponent under a specific lock or something like that. Like, being able to just untap those, we've never seen anything like that in the game, just to be like, okay, well, untap that card so I no longer am under that lock.
Good thing about a lot of those effects, like Deadly Defenders and the Yellow Slug jump to mind, all of those cards have barrier. So you're at least going to be able to still implement your Deadly Defenders and stuff like that. But the new...
Well, 21 ignores barrier, right?
Not the leader.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the leader's restanding, it ignores barrier.
It
Yeah.
ignores barrier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says choose up to 3 of your opponent's battle cards and or unisons, ignoring barrier. Switch them to
Ignoring
active.
barrier.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Now, granted, a lot of the cards you're playing with 21 that's been revealed so far don't actually have draw to them. So, like, decks like that don't really matter too much to it.
Are we talking about the same damn 21? Isn't like half the cards draw 1 on play?
Yeah, there's a 4-drop that just draws 2.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. There's the one draws on your opponent's turn. So, like, you do it when they play a card. But, yes, there's the totally Audacity. When this card's play, draw 2, then at the end of your opponent's next turn, play 1 clone token in your opponent's battle area. So, yes, that one does draw you 2 cards. But you just restand the card first. Okay, whatever. All right. Slug doesn't work against this deck.
No.
Do clone tokens have a color?
No.
No.
Tokens do not have colors.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be great if it specified a blue clone token, but no, I think it was somewhere in the rules or somewhere it specified that since they don't specify a color, they are colorless. Like they're not even considered black if I recall correctly.
Yeah, they're just the straight colorless.
No. If you're able to deck build to even get the Android 21 scheme field card on your board, then even your opponent not playing cards wouldn't do nothing because you're still giving tokens to them. So I feel like there's enough to where this deck can still be consistent no matter what your opponent's doing.
I feel like if your opponent, outside of like archetypes that are not going to be playing a lot of battle cards, are not going to have a lot of battle cards on field for you to utilize. I feel like if your opponent is modulating their play to not play into your game plan, then they're probably going to put themselves in a bad position anyway, and you can just win on good blue cards already.
Yeah.
The locking you into not playing cards by skill is really, really awkward because there's a lot of blue cards that play themselves by skill that you want to include in this deck.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier about that means you can't play the Piccolo Pan combo because the Pan you can turn and give it to your opponent and have a blue energy, but you can't cheat that card out. You have to literally pay the 1 out for Pan and then actually make the move to other board if you even wanted to do that strategy.
So I guess it's ruled that like counter play and counter attack are not played by a skill. It's just you're
playing most of the time during your opponent's turn, and it specifies during your turn.
During your turn. Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty much from but I don't know. Like we've seen this for the past few sets where they've made these really restrictive archetypes, and they turned out to be super good. Like case in point is the Gamma archetype. A lot of people when that came out, people were like, "Oh, you can only play Android cards. That's going to be stupid." But then we still see meta relevance to the cards today, and we saw it last set with Rihan. Like, granted, that really hasn't seen much meta representation in big championships, but at our locals and stuff, we found much success in that deck. It's just because it's restricted doesn't mean the deck's going to be bad. I feel like there's a reason why it's restrictive as it is because the stuff is going to be broken.
I mean, it is hit or miss. Bandai has had some decks that they over restricted and turned out the deck was just straight ass, which I would. It's hard to say if I would rather have Bandai over restrict the deck, so we don't have to deal with the fallout of something just catastrophic in the meta. But I feel like the restrictions for this 21 deck are easy enough to play around that it's not even going to be noticeable once you get tuned with the deck. If you're coming from a average blue deck to this, you might have a little bit of trouble. But I feel like after you get a couple games under your belt, the deck's going to be amazing to play.
Yeah.
You can run cards in the deck to give your opponent clone tokens. It doesn't have to be scheme. There's a lot of 21 cards. I think there's a blue 1-drop that just gives your opponent a token. There's the 4-drop from the deck that gives your opponent a token. So there are ways to force the tokens onto your opponent and do it cheaply without having to invest in something like a scheme or I think there's like a 3-drop 21 that gives tokens. I think there are ways to play the deck without having to run what's the word? I'm blanking on the word right now. I apologize.
Generically good blue stuff?
Like without running unoptimal cards is what I'm trying to say.
And from the reveals we've seen so far, like Jimmy said, there are other cards from set 8 that will play you clone tokens. But from this particular set we've seen so far, only the 1 card will play a clone token. And keep in mind, if you play the 5-drop Bewitching Batterer, in order to use the revive, you have to have a clone token on your opponent's board. So even though that card is 5 energy to play, in order to do the revive, you still have to have those tokens on your opponent's board.
Does it restrict you to having to have it, or can you pay the cost for revive?
Sorry, you can't activate this card's revive from your drop without paying its skill cost by removing 1 clone token from your opponent's battle area from the game.
So it's restricted.
Yeah.
You have to remove the clone token.
No, it's you can activate this card.
You can't. Sorry, I said can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it just gives you another option. Yeah, you can. So it's an alternate way to pay for revive
without having to discard a multicolored card, which is actually a lot better. I misread that. I thought it said can't at first, and I thought it was really weird when I read that. I was like, okay, so I guess it's added to the cost.
And it says can't without.
No. So you
can without.
So you can activate this card's revive from your drop without paying its skill cost by removing one clone token from your opponent's battle area. So I said it wrong earlier. So instead of having to discard a multicolored card for the revive effect, you can just go buy to the clone token, which actually, granted, this is 5 cost. This card would be really hard to just pay for outright unless you're using Super 17 in the older deck. But if you're doing Super 17, you're pretty much just playing as many bad omens as you possibly can just to hurt your opponent. But if you were to get this card on the board, in the old deck, I think it's more beneficial for that clone token removal.
If anybody is worried about Android 21 and happens to play red, you can play one of my favorite techs, the 1-drop baby from set 4.
just eat the clones.
The Union absorbs not once per turn, and you can put anything you want under that motherfucker. So you just suck all them tokens up.
Yeah.
I think the Android 21 is going to have, there's enough from different archetypes to where they kind of can mesh together. And it's funny because we just talked about this earlier where most stuff doesn't mesh, but I feel like there's a lot of avenues you can take with this deck. You can either go full archetype, you can play the old stuff, you can mix between the two, whatever works best. I think there's going to be a lot of unique builds, even though this is going to be, I feel like this is going to be a really popular deck, but I feel like there's going to be enough unique builds to where it's going to be kind of a fresh take each time you play it.
Which is completely different from what we've seen so far for Power Absorb. Like, so far, like, we've seen, like, with the yellow Saiyans, it's like, oh, I can see good yellow staples helping this deck out. No. Both of these two blue decks have, like you said, Nick, have support from other archetypes, which just fits right into it perfectly. Which is really cool. I like that concept. Like, we're so used to getting a new set. It has nothing to do with any of the previous, like, archetypes for it. Like, you can't put anything in there. It's like, oh, this is just dead with this. Like, I don't even think the PyCon stuff really benefit from the previous PyCon stuff, even though they were the same color, you know?
I like to build on this point. I do like the idea of Bandai finally fully realizing a concept. We have seen so many Android 18 into Krillin archetypes where the Krillin is a support card to the 18. We've seen so many of those in the game, but none of them have been very relevant or very good. But seeing this new set, like, they're finally, like, almost fully realizing this idea. I think, like, in 21, in a way, it's fully realizing the idea of giving your opponent cards that you also benefit from. Where, I mean, you can give your opponent clone tokens, but you're also just benefiting off of just your opponent playing the game, which is very thematic to 21 as a character, while also, like, being a upgraded version of what we've seen in the past for that character. And I really like that idea. So I'm excited to see this, and I want to see I want to see them to continue to build on, like, previous niche combos that older decks had played involving their respective characters.
And real quick, we didn't really touch base on it. All the 21 cards are 25k or under, which is perfect for the deck because I think we talked about it a little bit on Discord. This deck needs the 16 ramps in order for it to be really good because of the specified costs. It's like, if you're not playing against a blue or green deck, if you're playing against a red or yellow deck, you need at least the X amount of energy on your own just to get to that point. Now, yes, it says the Z battle cards, you could, your 21 Z battle cards, you could tap for energy. And I'm assuming we'll probably get multicolored Z battle cards that go with this deck in order to maximize that green-blue energy, which is nice.
You know what I just realized? With Android 21 full power counter, like, if you are playing a blue deck and you swing with your leader first, this card can turn off the rest of your turn just by switching your battle cards, right?
So
can it do it during your opponent's turn to play the androids?
So yeah, like you can use anytime you're playing an Android 21 card, like during your turn or your opponent's turn, you could tap your opponent's battle cards down for the cost. So, for example, for that particular card, if you're playing against a blue deck, you could literally, if your opponent has 2 blue battle cards or even a blue battle card and a blue unison, you could tap both those cards down, and then pay whatever else you need to pay on your side to negate the attack. And
negate the attack. Get a 25k double striker. Put them underneath an incredibly powerful floodgate. I'm not looking forward to playing against this.
Like I said, no. If this deck blows up at our locals, like if more than just me are playing at our locals, it can be fun against playing the mirror matches because it's literally gonna break down to who can go first or who can control the board state better.
I think this will probably be one of the most interesting mirror match decks ever. It's gonna be a high skill intensity.
Yep, the mirror will be quite fun.
I think this is probably not going to be like the format that we had going into Zenkai series or the first set of Zenkai series, where I felt that was the most skill intensive the game has ever been, and that was just from like SS4 Gogeta and Sin Shinron. Like those mirror matches, like you know exactly what they're playing, they know exactly what you're playing, and it just comes down to straight skill. I think 21 is going to be a lot like that, and I think it's going to be even broader with that, where there's a limited pool of 21 cards. So everybody is going to know what those cards are and what they're going to do and what your opponent has access to. And now you have to play your entire turn with all of those cards in mind. And it's going to be, I think it's going to come down to a game of bluffing. It's going to come down to a game of baiting. And I think it's going to be, I think the deck might be annoying to play against, but I think it's also going to be very fun and rewarding to play against that deck.
I will tell you what's not going to be fun. Getting that 8-drop played on you.
Yeah.
It has deflect, so it's hitting the board. And you all thought that, I mean, yes, the old 8-drop was a problem against monocolor decks. They had to get rid of it. I understand why. I hated it, but any monocolor deck was completely obliterated if they allowed the 8-drop to hit the board. But this one chooses pretty much all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and says bye. And then it restands 5 energy afterwards at the end of your turn. Which is just like, it's like a mix between, was it Deadly Predator or
Violent Predator?
Violent Predator and the SS4 Vegeta Secret Rare. So it's like a combination of those 2 cards almost.
Yeah. I think the strength of Violent Predator come from it hit energy as well. Where this only hits battle cards. So, I mean, we've seen ignoring barrier field wipes for so long. But we've never seen a card that is not only going to use your cards to play itself, but it's also going to say fuck you to the cards after it uses them.
And not just that, it has the once per turn auto. When your opponent activates a counter skill, doesn't matter what counter, as long as they activate a counter, they have to discard 2 cards from their hand as part of the effect. So that's an attack, a counter play, a counter.
I'm sorry, didn't we just ban Sensu Bean for restanding 2 energy, and this restands 5?
And that's not tied to
Beam was at battle speed. So I get where you're coming from, but like I mean, if you're gonna be paying 8 at battle speed, then you get to untap some energy.
Well, just imagine like this technically doesn't have. Yeah, this has no unique, so you can play more than 1 on the board. And this isn't tied to the turn the cards play to get the untap. So if this is sticking on the board, you're going to have 5 energy to play with on your opponent's turn every turn.
Yeah, and not just that. Like I said, it's not unique. That auto is not limit 1. So if you somehow get to a point in the game, because this is a dual attack double striker, So if you're not in the game at that point, you're getting the 5 energy, and if you go to the next turn and you establish another one while this one's still alive, that's 4 cards your opponent has to get rid of because it procs for each card. And then
yellow gets Spirit Bomb.
Well, Spirit Bomb could be a plus 35k or more, but yes.
Neat.
And even the card itself was never even be dead, even if you can't establish it, because it negates the combo cost. So it's always going to have some sort of value, even if you can't play it. There's nothing bad about this card.
No. Like you said, like the fact that as long as your leader is Android 21, it is a 10k combo for free. Which
you are running this at a 4 no matter what.
No, for sure. Like yeah, this will be a 4 of in every deck because it's a 10k combo. It has great.
What are they thinking?
It's a late game play. Like if you're not playing against blue or green, you have to play this on turn 5. Or if you're
spending my battle cards to do it. It could cost 20 energy and it's okay. You're spending my battle cards.
Look, just next set, don't play
the
blue
game
or green when I come to the shop.
So you can't play blue or green, or decks that play battle cards, or decks that play unisons, or decks that need cards in their hand, or decks that are bad against decks that restand energy.
Okay. Well, let's take a step back here for a second. I will pay... How much money I got on the table here? I will pay $9.15 if anybody can find a way to fit Veku the Unpredictable into a 21 list and make it work. If you can find like a way to negate its skills until the start of your opponent's next turn, and then like they start getting it, and then they get it like off loop, and you're able to tap down your own Veku, I will pay you $9 and what did I say? 15 cents.
Which Veku is this again?
This is the TP Veku that at the start or end of the turn, your opponent gains control of the card.
Oh, the joke was
it drop.
The joke card?
Yeah, it's a 5-drop. If you can find a way to break this card in 21, I will give you money. I'm playing 21. I've said I'm playing 21 since the start of this set. And I'm too lazy to figure out how to make this card work, but I want it to work.
You give this to your opponent just so that you have a blue energy to tap.
Yeah, and you can't combo it off, so it's just there. So somebody will figure out like some turtle skull spice and give you cards or some shit.
Yeah, you don't need that. You don't need that. If your opponent,
though.
Is all of the energy cost on it specified?
On what?
Or does it have one non-specified?
It has non-specified.
So if it has non-specified, you can play it against literally every color. Like
yeah, but
it's a 4-drop, right? Like
which one?
The big one we're talking about. You have to spend 5 energy on it.
So it's an 8-drop. So it means you have to spend at least 5 of your own energy if you're not playing against blue or green.
Okay, so there's no way to play it by a skill. You have to hard cast it.
You can't play any battle cards on your turn with a skill. As long as you're playing this leader.
Okay, so it's not going to come out on turn 5. It's going to be like turn 6. Well, yeah, it could be.
It could definitely come out turn 5. Like if your opponent has 3 cards for you to tap down, you're playing this card.
I mean, if your opponent wants to flood the board, and you're playing against the wrong thing, you could get it out of it pretty quick.
So what do you do? What is the counterplay?
Depending on what the Z battle card is, you probably need to take care of that for sure.
I mean, we saw our homie Adam playing Ginyu at the shop, and the board state that he had on like turn 3, you just would have been able to slam the fucking 21 on like turn 3 without tapping your own energy.
I will also say, you're running for sure 4 of the Super 17 in this deck because they ignore energy exhaust as long as your leader's Android 21. That's turn 1, 2, 3, and 4 charge for you. And you have cards that can search those cards out for you.
And the Super 17 is a win con by itself.
You can't use that in this deck.
Well, there's the Android 18 from the last set that does the same thing. It ignores energy exhaust, and you pitch that, and you can search top 5 for an Android.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah, the 5 drop Arrival. I think it's Arrival, but yeah.
There's like this. It's gonna be a wild set.
No, I'm super excited for 21. You know what? I think we should end it off on that.
We pogged too much over a little girl.
Thank you all for tuning in. Keep in mind, there's buttons, links. Feel free to click them there for a reason. And with that saying, thanks for tuning in.